Hey everyone, Paul Finck here, the Maverick Millionaire, and we are here for Maverick Mondays, and we're talking about, getting real. Getting real with ourselves, getting real with each other. Is that what life's all about? Is it about just getting real with each other and making it happen? We're going to be talking about that tonight at Maverick Mondays, and this is where we do it different, where we show up to be all that we can be, and we do it different than other people do because, everything I've done in my life has been doing it a little bit different than most. I'm going to talk about that tonight. How to do it different in your world, how to show up differently than you've ever done before to get different results, how to do it differently than the next person so that you can create a energy and a business and a lifestyle that moves you to another space. Most people around the world are challenged. Most people around the world are living from paycheck to paycheck. Most people around the world are not quite living in their fullest potential, not quite living in their best self. And so when we talk about doing it differently, it means to be the abnormal versus the normal. It means to be that 5%, that 3%, that 1% that actually gets it, that actually gets it all right and creates that world that you always wanted, that lifestyle that you always wanted for yourself. So really profound. Hey, Terry, see you real soon. Just a couple days. And so how do you get real with people, and what does that really mean for you? We all have our stories, and one of the things that I've been reflecting on is whether I tell my story enough, whether I actually share my story, and I'm always looking to be completely, in that term, authentic. And I usually express the fact that people that have to say they're going to be authentic usually aren't authentic. People that have to say that they're being honest aren't usually honest. It's, a truly godly person never points out how godly they are. They just live in that space. And it's what I've been raised in, and what I normally feel is, or the belief system that I've developed is that we live, we experience, we are. We don't need to preface it and express it into the universe. We just live that way. So what does it mean to be that person that is, so that you are completely authentic in every place, in every way? I look to be the same person no matter where you find me, no matter where I show up, whether it's on stage, whether it's on a Facebook Live like this, or whether it's, just hanging out with my kids on the beach, or going to the amusement park, or having a burger. It's just kind of all the same, and it's who I am, and I show up the same way. So whether I'm in a fancy $1,000 suit or t-shirt and jeans, it's just who I am. So then it's sharing the rest of the story, and does that matter? I've had people talk about how, we really want to know who you are and the real person. And until they know the real person, and what's that mean to them? What do they mean when they say the real person? They mean, until we know all your, and I'm paraphrasing here, till we know all the garbage in your life, we don't know you. Until we know all the hell you've been through, we don't trust you. Until we know all the bad, we can't believe all the good. Or the good sounds too good to be true, and so it must not be. And it's one of the interesting components about living a great life. And I've been blessed. I have a passionate relationship with my wife. I've got 6 just amazing children. I've got a blessed life. I get to travel at whim. I get to do what I want at any given day, at any given moment. I designed my life on purpose. I created the life that I really wanted. And so now I've got this blessed life. And so, I share that, I show up in that way and be like, it's too good to be true. I actually had a marketing company tell me, oh, no, could we have different pictures of you and your family because these look too nice. They just look too staged. It was like that took us 3 seconds to everyone stood up, they smiled, and we took a picture. It really wasn't hard to make that happen. We're on family vacation together and we were all having a blast. All those smiles are real. And yet people don't believe it. They think that there's got to be a flaw. There's got to be something wrong. And so then what do? Then do you show up and you express all your garbage so that then people can trust you? Then people like you. What does it mean to be real? What do you think? Well, comment here, comment below. Let me know what you believe. What does real mean for you? When you show up in business, when you show up for an event, when you show up for networking, whatever the case may be for you, you show up with a new client. Do you step in there talking about the real you? What does that mean? The story behind the story? Or do you show up to express who you are now? For me, it's who I am now. I'm living a great life. Was that always the case? Was that always the key? Was I always like this? And no. And I'm looking down over here just to check out what your comments are as people are joining. And go ahead and comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are as I chitter-chatter away here. What's your thoughts? Do you normally show up real? Do you normally show up in that power of the presence that you are now or where you came from? Do you show up to and express what your background is or your experience on not the good stuff like, oh yeah, well, I built $1 million business. I've built several $1 million businesses. I'm a best-selling author. I've been able to travel all around the world coaching and training people on how to build up their life and create the life of their dreams. No, I'm not talking about that story. I'm talking about the rest of that other stuff, the stuff that we normally leave in the closet. Now, when you come to, hang out with me more, when you're committed, is normally when I share some of the deeper things. I always felt that in 90 minutes or in an hour or even a 10-minute engagement, certainly, I want to inspire you to create that greatness. Or should I? What do you think? Do we share? Do we tell people some of the background? I mean, for instance, I talk about at my 3-day boot camp, I talk about my father and my relationship with my father, which I don't have. And I don't have on purpose because he didn't show up to be a powerful man. He didn't show up to be a good man. And so I talk about that in my 3-day boot camp when we have more time to share and get to know one another. My parents were they got divorced after 35 years. Yet they should have been divorced after 1. My father fooled around on my mother their whole marriage, my whole life. That was my role model on what a perfect relationship looked like. Now, I normally talk about my great relationship with my wife and what that looks like and how we developed it. We both come from broken homes, and so we developed a relationship based on what we thought a good relationship should look like. Not what we modeled because we had no role models to make it work for us. We made it up on our own. We wrote our own book, if you will, on how to work a relationship, how to develop one, and what it might feel and look like. Well, 33 years later, passionate relationship with my wife, it all seems to be working great. But I didn't have a role model. Should I be talking more about the role model I didn't have or the role model I created? the role model I created for others, the role model of what a great relationship could look like after 33 years still having passion. My daughter was talking about this to my wife the other day, and she said, I look to have a relationship like the two of you someday. How amazing is that? It's one of the best compliments I've ever gotten. That's what it's all about. See, that's real. And so I always talked about the greatness, only I don't dwell on the background story, though. Probably what created the persona that I am now is that I didn't grow up in greatness, that there were fights and lies and cheating every single day of my life. I went through counseling in my 30s, late 20s, and found out I'm really good at perceiving the unspoken because there was no spoken truth in my house. They said, that's probably why. Is that the story you want to hear? What do you think? Should we be expressing more of these background stories, or more about what you could be showing up as? You know, the lesson of the new versus the lesson of the pain. Do we teach the lesson of the greatness, or it needs to be a balance? I want the comments. I want you to share with me and really tell me what it is that you're feeling right now as you're hearing this stuff. Maybe what your story is. What's going on for you? Hey, Carl. Lost my father at 14. So sorry. I tried to be consistent and professional, although I may not be fully prepared. Yeah. It's interesting, and I feel like I lost my father when I was young, although he's still alive, and it's interesting, and I should be grateful because I have one, and others like yourself didn't even have the option. For me, and so often my siblings and my family life was not the perfect. And I always realized I get to choose my friends. I get to choose the people that I hang out with versus family, and that's so much more powerful. And so for all the people that don't have, what I would encourage you is to realize that you can make family out of your whole community. You can make family out of everything and everybody. And now it's up to you. But yeah, my role models weren't something to role model. It wasn't something to follow. So I know it shapes us. It creates us. Is it something that brings us closer that we should be talking more about? Please comment below. Let me know what your story is. Is it important to be shared? And if so, why? Why is it so important that we share these stories? You know, I remember when my oldest girls are adopted. And so my oldest girls are actually my nieces biologically. And so my older girls were adopted. They're my nieces biologically. And it's, we've had them since birth. We've had them since they were babies. And we went through a process to bring them into our life, to keep them in our life, and now they are fully adopted by my wife and I, and we've raised them as our own, and we are mommy and daddy for them. I got them as children because my sister was not able to take care of them. They were taken away from her by the state, and she wasn't able to take care of her daughters. And so the state took them away, and it was either us or foster care. For me, it wasn't a choice. People congratulate my wife and I, thank us, give us all these accolades. And for us, it was, of course, we're taking them. It wasn't even a second thought. Of course, we're stepping in. I can't even imagine what their life would be like if we hadn't. And now 23 years, 24 years later, they're active participants in our society, just amazing people, and just so my great honor to know. all happened because we stepped up 23 years ago. It all happened because my sister wasn't well enough to take care of him. All happened because my parents maybe didn't take care of my sister effectively. Who knows? And that blame game or that experience level of going through this, what I do know is that she wasn't officially diagnosed. Only my suspicion, having gotten a psychology degree, is that she was schizophrenic or is schizophrenic, at least at a certain level, and some form of psychosis at the very least. And that as soon as I start talking about that, people then come out of the woodwork to talk about their experiences. When I first started talking about when we first got the girls and started sharing with people, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, my brother was schizophrenic. Oh yeah, my father was schizophrenic. Oh yeah, I lived through this. And we started comparing stories and comparing notes about what our childhood was like in growing up with this mayhem that can happen when you have someone who has some form of psychosis in your family. Every day was just craziness, because if it wasn't her, it was one of the other members of the family that created this just upheaval. That's what I grew up with every day. And so is sharing that, does that bring us closer? Got a couple people noting here, and thanks so much. Carl, appreciate you. Vicky, pleasure. Audio isn't working. Gosh darn, sounds like audio is working for most. Check it out. How's that? Anybody feeling it now? Is that better or worse? I think it's the same. I'm my own role model like you. I don't have one, but I do have people I didn't want to be like. Absolutely, Tara. Yes. There's a lot of people out there that are the antithesis of role models, so we've got to pay attention to that. And that's a large part of my family, and my immediate family are people that I didn't want to be like. And so I started role modeling what I didn't want to create what I did want. Same with my sister. Mom and I raised them for a few also. Oh, wow. Awesome. Coincidence. Yeah, no coincidences, Carl. My wife is saying, I love you. Thank you so much, honey. And Leo. Yeah, Leo and I got together. We've known each other for years, and we actually just did an event together. Hey, Leo, shout out to you. And Leo and I just did an event together where I spoke at one of his great mastermind groups. Just phenomenal. Leo and I are going to do it over and over again. Had just a phenomenal time. And the past doesn't matter. I had no one, so what? I prefer to look at what I can do and control within my life. And I agree with you. And yet, Leo, what was fascinating is you and I have known each other for years now. And yet, when we came together for that weekend and we actually had time to like just BS with one another, we began to realize every time we shared that we had more and more and more in common, that we both, you didn't have anyone, and I felt like I didn't have anyone in my corner and in my background. And I was from the time I was about 10 years old, I was the responsible one in my household. I was the one that everyone turned to as, oh, Paul's got the answers. But by 13, absolutely, I was the man of the house, if you have it. So there was a real challenge with that. But as we shared, we got to be closer and connected more because we found out we had more and more of our background in common. And yet Leo and I both shared the fact that we felt like we went through the fire and got out the other side. Once you get out the other side, who wants to look back? Who wants to take a look at that in more detail? No, it doesn't. I've gone through enough therapy. I've gone through enough counseling. I've gone through enough really personal development over the decades now that really for me, I'm really good. I'm in a great spot. I really have dealt with all the demons, dealt with all the stuff. And it's not that it brings up angst in me. It's just, I'd much rather talk about the empowerment and the greatness I have now than, that stuff that I dealt with so many years and years and years ago. Why bring it up? However, people love to hear it. They love to express it. They love to talk about it. Why? Why is that so important? Share, continue to tell me, or what your story is. What's going on for you? What's going on in your background? Are there things that you haven't told anyone? Man, I would encourage you. One of the reasons why I'm able to talk about all this freely is that I have spent not only hours working on it personally and gone through a lot of personal development to know how to bring things up and work through the challenges internally and understand that there's these belief systems that we grew up with, these mindsets that can be limiting and challenging, and how to shift and change them. However, I've also spent just hundreds of hours on stage freely talking through so much of my stuff that now it really has been let go. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Only, is that what it is? That it's just a catharsis? It's that it's just good for us to let it go, and that's why we share this stuff with other people? Is that the answer? Or is there more to it? What makes that connection between human beings? Is it necessary for us to know the fire that we've gone through? Is that key to our future? Who else? We've got a few people joining in. Awesome. Absolutely. So, and there's no right or wrong here. I'm not exactly sure what's best. I do know it's important to be able to talk about it, be able to share it. I hesitated even to share some things on here because there's some things that's, what's the point? And yet people want to hear it. They want to understand where you came from so that they can hear the voice that's coming, so that they can really appreciate the advice that you give because of where you came from. That was some of the conversation that Leo and I were talking about. Carl, it breeds trust. Audio's on. Way to go, Vicky. It breeds trust, and I guess the question is why. And I love the dialogue, so keep it up, guys. So the question is, so here I am. I've gone through the test of time. I've battled my own demons. I've come out of the fire. I mean, I've had some really, really influential people over the last 10, 15 years. Only before that, man, I was on my own. I never worked for anybody, so I never had a manager or a boss that really shaped me or showed me what to do. So I always was an entrepreneur doing my own thing. My parents were pretty much useless in that regard. Most of their advice I've had to shun and throw away because it didn't work. They didn't know how to build relationships. They didn't know how to build business. They didn't have any real friends. Most of their friends were either lying or stealing from them, or they were my father's mistresses. That's a whole nother level of insanity. So one of my best advisors, this will really get you. One of my best advisors, the guy who taught me the most about who I am today, that I can look back in my childhood and say that was really helpful, was a kid that my parents brought in when he was young. So I was 10, he was about 13 years old, and my parents became his legal guardians. Yeah, he was brilliant. He shaped me. He showed me the way of how life was and helped me think more profoundly. He also happened to be a cocaine addict and a male prostitute. This isn't a joke. This is absolutely, that's who he was at 13 years old, and he continued that through his 20s. This is profound. Gentleman's now passed away. He's died of AIDS, and for those of us that lived through the AIDS epidemic, we know what that was like. Well, he was one of the victims. Is that important? It's profound. That's where I got my advice from. Wow. And I think back to that, and it's like, what a crazy background. What a crazy childhood. Is that important, and why does that build trust versus I've created phenomenal children. I've created a phenomenal relationship with my wife. I've created phenomenal businesses, all that I've created in the last 20 years. What happened before that was the garbage I had to get through to be able to have this life. What's most important to share? What should be the thing that connects us? Is it the garbage, or is it the greatness? Or is it something, a combination of both, that really develops that tightness and that friendship? I don't know. I have a clue. I have my own thoughts. What are yours? What do you think? This is up to you. I will say it certainly has helped. As I got rid of the demons and the garbage in my life and learned to be able to share it freely, it didn't have the pull on me, didn't have the emotional angst for me. What enabled me to be able to do what I wanted to do in my life without the fears, the blocks, the anxieties. That's important. Only once I got rid of all that, well, then the sharing is for you more than for me. It's to help you relate to who I am, although I don't need to share it anymore. For all of you that are still going through that process, man, sharing it till you can share it freely without it having that emotional tug on you really is important. Because you got to understand that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's neutral. The opposite of that pain isn't pleasure, it's where it doesn't matter either way. And for most of our pain of our childhood, for instance, most of the experiences that really tug at our emotional strings, they've got such pull on us that they create a different environment whenever we talk about it, whenever we bring it up, that it distorts our view of things, distorts our way we engage life, and will shift things. When we get to neutral, when we get to the point where it doesn't matter, I can talk about it without it causing pain, and it's not that I'm saying it to get revenge or pleasure. It's got no emotional. I'm sharing it like I would share relaying a story in a movie. That I just saw this great movie. Here's what the plot was. And I'm able to do that because of the work I've done in personal development and mindset and understanding these components. So for all of you, going through that process is important, getting to that point. Only once you're at that point for yourself, it's still important to share it with others, because they want to know who the whole of you are. Because all they're seeing is a snapshot of your life. All they're seeing is, well, a piece of who you are. They're not seeing the full you, because the full you was made up of all these chapters of your life, and which fills out the picture and creates the fullness of it. And once you create that 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional even view of someone, that's where the trust comes from. That's where the real connectivity comes from, the real depth, if you will. What's your comments? What's your thoughts on all of this? What do you think about what's going on? A couple things. My parents' generation didn't share. Absolutely. And Vicki, what I'll also talk about is it's not just generational, it's also ethnic. There's certain ethnic viewpoints where, like the Italian families in New York, absolutely not. They didn't share anything. Everything's kept internal and no one talks about anything. And so is that good? I know for many that was a real pain button and a real challenge to go through. And so boomers shared, and it became a part of a movement. Absolutely. You could say it would help your business transactions. And yes, because sharing builds that trust, and that's key. And yet I always held back, like, no, I'm not sharing the deepest, darkest secrets of my life to make an extra buck. That seems so wrong on so many levels, like as a reason to do it, although that's a byproduct of what happens, isn't it? That you do it, that whenever you can build a trust, you're building another level of existence with other people, and that community makes a big difference. And so people will buy from people that they know, like, and trust. How do you get to know someone, like someone, and then trust them is by this sharing of stories, this sharing of where your background is coming from, of what built you into the person you are today. Really profound. So yes, and thank you for all being the peeps and like-mindedness, and absolutely, whether you're listening to this live or listening to it in replay, absolutely go and share. And let me know your thoughts. I will comment continuously on these. I always do, and I always go back to the comments that have happened before. So go ahead and even look at some of our other Facebook posts as to what we've been talking about and share your thoughts and comments. I'd really appreciate that. Also, and doing some extra drive today for Facebook likes, for reshares of this. Also, you like it, share it, post it on your timeline, share it with others, and also go to some of my other social media. Go to my Instagram, go to the Twitter, go to YouTube, share, subscribe. There's a whole lot of other information out there. So would love to have all of you a part of that community. In addition, we also have stuff coming up, and I'm speaking all over the world, or so it seems. I will be in LA this week with Craig Duswald and the Rockstar Marketing Bootcamp, and be speaking there with a big hoopla. I'm one of the top sponsors there. The end of the month, I'll be down in Dallas with Tim Gillette and be speaking there, talking about blogging and vlogging and marketing and how to really build your business in those ways as well, and be speaking on his stage and hanging out with them. I also will be in Orlando with David Dweck next week, or not Orlando, apologize, in Boca, speaking with David Dweck's group down there. And so we're all over the country from coast to coast. And then I'll be having a boot camp the end of this month down in Orlando. I would encourage all of you to come join me. It is 3 days of just me on stage in really profoundly changing your life, both on business and life, in creating a magnitude of change. You absolutely will shift when you show up. So come and be shifted into the greater good of who you can be and who you want to be. So just be real. Be real with who you are. Be real with yourself. Be real with others. Show up as you would everywhere is how you will anywhere, and continue to play in that way, and life will show up for you. This is, I'm complete, and I'm just hanging out and sharing. Let me read a couple more of the comments. Yes, they want to know. They want to know it all. Do you have any do's and don'ts on sharing? Great question, Vicky. Do's and don'ts. Do share, and do share often, and don't share. Here's what I would say don't share, and here's what I have a purpose with sharing. And what I mean by that is that there's a difference between vomiting on people and sharing. There's a difference between unloading on people because you can't take it anymore, and you come in and you explode as if you were, just opening up a shooken soda can and turning around in a circle with it, is how most people show up when they say, oh, I'm sharing, where they just come in and they've had a bad day and what they would consider a bad life, and they begin to just verbosely share how hard a life they have and how challenging it's been, and how everything's gone to crap in a basket, and that's not an effective way to share. Effective way to share is to actually talk about the facts, talk about how it's making you feel, and have an intelligent, an emotional intelligent conversation. To have emotional intelligence means to be able to recognize it, to be able to express it, and to be able to discern what is your perceived notion, what could be fact, and what are the places that you're not sure of. And so really express it in that way. So especially in business, Not everybody needs to know everything. For instance, even on this call, I've been really specific with specific nooks of pieces that I shared. I didn't go into all the pain and all the tragedy of my parents' divorce, of the pain and anguish of watching my parents fight. I didn't go into verbatim of exactly what my parents said in every one of their fights and go on for the next hour about this. You got the point. My parents had a bad relationship. That's what I'm sharing. You don't need all the details that would just be not just painful to listen to, exhausting. And where they begin to feel, they shift from listening to a story and wanting to be empathetic to wanting to run because they've heard enough. And so that's where would be some of my do's and don'ts. Share with purpose. Share with intent, and share with an emotional control or emotional intelligence of understanding what you're sharing. Versus, and here's the other alternative is, people go through what I would call their program. And it's a record that just plays over and over and over and over again. I'll be with certain people and I'll be able to point it out to everyone around them. And I'll point it out to other people around them while they're still going through the program, and they won't even hear me talk about it. Because you'll mention someone's divorce. They will instantly go through a whole monologue about what the divorce was like, how horrible their ex was, and what they had to live through. And until they're done talking about doing their monologue, you won't get a word in edgewise. You won't be able to interrupt them. They will not hear you at all because they've got to finish their program, their story. Be aware of that in yourself so that you can stop that. That's ineffective sharing. You're just reciting without any purpose and without any control or emotional control or even understanding of what's going on. When you know you've been through tragedy and you want to share it for building a connection, you've been through tragedy, you want to share it to help the other person even understand, not just yourself, but also that they're not alone. That, man, stuff happens to everyone, that you're not alone. You're not in isolation. We've all been through it. And share with that intent is to help them. That's a whole level. That's a whole nother level. That's effective, positive, really transformational sharing for you and for them. When you share, just unload. Tell the other person you're just unloading. They don't have to say a word, and you'll be done in 3.5 seconds. Because that would be effective. Anything other than that, you're just unloading. You're just putting your monkey on them. That's poor sharing. Just off the top of my head, just a couple components on what might help you, Vicky, and continue to inspire and continue to be the people that you are. Enjoy you so much and appreciate you so much. Thank you. This is Paul Finck, and we'll be back next Monday, talk more and more. We continue to share every single week. Continue to find me, come and hang out with me. Engaging with me live is so much better than Memorex. Absolutely come and engage me live. Would really love that so that we can get to know one another even at a deeper level. This is Paul Finck. This is Maverick Mondays. I am the Maverick Millionaire, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care now.